Look how sweaty I am. It's hideous. It's like 39 degrees today, and I can't run the fan because it will blow out the sound. So I'm just going to be hot and gross and sweaty instead. Hello, my name's Joe, and I am the assistant editor of Renowned for Sound, and I have gross facial hair that I am growing for charity, and a cold. So life is on the up. This is just going to be a kind of vinyl update, so I'm going to talk about all of the vinyl that I've got over the course of the last couple of weeks. Some of this is going to be old albums that I've purchased second-hand, some of them are going to be reissues, some of them are going to be new albums. So exactly what the appeal is going to be, I don't know. Let's find out. I feel like we might as well start off with the most influential album out of all of those that I've bought recently. I think it's safe to say this is kind of one of the most important records that's come out over the last 20 years. It had a profound effect not only on kind of the alternative music scene, but on pop music as well. I am talking about, of course, Jane Fonda's Workout record. I got this. I have a weird compulsion to collect like novelty records, I suppose. So I have a bizarre collection of like sex ed records from the 60s and barn line dancing records and dancercise. So I bought this record to fulfill that particular need. Now on to the non-stupid things that I bought. First off, I bought Savage's Silence Yourself, which is a record that I foolishly dismissed as being like okay when it first came out. It was one of those albums that for whatever reason I didn't properly listen to. I just kind of, I don't know, I remember liking it, but I never gave it the full attention it deserved. And then the other day, or a couple of weeks ago, Savages premiered their new single, The Answer, which is incredible, and the video for it is incredible, and it just, something in me just clicked, and I was like, oh my god, I need to go and listen to Silence Yourself again. So I went out and bought it on vinyl. It's amazing. I mean, it's of all of the tracks on here, the one I think that I love the most is Husbands, just because it has such an incredible vocal performance, and it has, I mean, it's so harsh. A lot of the songs on this album are harsh and dark, but it's so harsh. I also recently, this month, finished reading Carrie Brownstein's autobiography, Hunger Makes Me a Modern Girl, which, if you haven't read, I would highly recommend. It's amazing. It's one of those rare autobiographies that actually works as a book. You don't just read it to get the goss. I mean, it's well written, it's engaging, it's powerful. But anyway, of course, reading it kind of reignited my love for sleater-kinney, who are a band that I have always adored, but it just, reading the stories, the sometimes quite hardcore stories behind the albums, kind of makes you immediately want to go out and buy it again. So I have my favourites. One Beat is probably my favourite sleater-kinney album, so I already have that one. I already have The Woods, but I went and decided to buy the two that I don't have, which is All Hands on the Bad One and The Hot Rock. All Hands on the Bad One, I always say, is the record that first-time listeners of sleater-kinney should listen to. It's such a good entrance into their world, because it's their most accessible by some margin, I think. Like a song like You're No Rock and Roll Fun is a really amusing, kind of cool, funny diss track, but it's also the closest they ever got to writing kind of a mainstream rock tune. It is almost poppy in some ways. The Hot Rock is a very, very different beast. It's much stranger, much more difficult. Two great albums, both of which came with reissues, both of which came with pictures, one of which is over there, underneath Mutual Milk Hotel and Nicky Lane, and across from White Lung, so in the best of all possible company. Another one that I got is Beach House's Thank Your Lucky Stars. Of course, Beach House pulled a fast one on everyone this year and released Depression Cherry, and then, what was it, within the space of 2 months basically said, oh hey, by the way, we're releasing another album, and about 2 weeks later, this album came out. And it's interesting. I mean, I liked Depression Cherry, but I think Depression Cherry is kind of unhinged by the fact it has one amazing track, which is Space Song, which I think is such a good... I always call them album-killing tracks. You know, like songs that are so good, you listen to them at the expense of the rest of the album. You just go over and over, and you never really give the rest of the album a proper listen. That's the problem with Depression Cherry, I think. Whereas Thank You Lucky Stars, I feel, is a much more superior record. I think it's their most interesting. In some ways, I think it's their most adventurous album, and maybe that came from them not originally thinking it was going to be an album. I love the vinyl as well. It's amazing. It's coloured vinyl, which, as I've said before, best thing in the world. Peppermint green vinyl, and gatefold, and download code. So, like that. Sorted. So I had a weird musical upbringing. My parents basically didn't listen to music. They never... You know, we had one Cliff Richard's and the Shadows tape and a Christmas album that none of us ever listened to. So I had no musical upbringing, no musical knowledge. All the way basically till I was like 17, I didn't know. I honestly couldn't have told you a song by the Beatles. I couldn't have told you a song by Elvis. I had no knowledge, and I really had no interest. And that all changed when I was about 16, 17, because I was reading a lot of beat writers, and I found out that William S. Burroughs, who I really admired, had met this band, and there were photos of him with this band called Sonic Youth, and I thought, well, you know, if William S. Burroughs likes them, then they must be reasonably cool. And around the same time, in my compulsory music class in high school, we had this assignment where we had to bring in an album and talk about it, and I didn't know any albums, so I went to the library and just plucked out the first record that I saw in the A section, which was Ryan Adams' Gold. So those two were my first kind of musical discoveries, and they're still two artists who I adore, Sonic Youth and Ryan Adams, and who mean a great deal to me. But as I kind of started to explore music and learn more about music, they all of those artists kind of seemed up in the stratosphere. They seemed like they were untouchable, like they were superstars, megastars, even though some of them, I mean, I know Sonic Youth are big, but they're not as big as other bands, but they still seemed unreachable. They were rock stars, and their music was the music of rock stars, and they were cooler than I would ever be, and I was a gangly, pasty, awkward, depressed teenager. And then I heard music from an artist who changed my life. And that artist's name is Cat Power. Cat Power was the first person who made music that was transcendental, that was big and beautiful and powerful and tragic, and yet was in the realm of my existence. It was something I could understand, whereas it felt like Sonic Youth and Ryan Adams were cool kind of aliens, rock stars, superstars, superheroes, playing cool alien superstar music. Cat Power was a human being, and listening to a song like Names, where she just lists off these friends and these terrible things that happened to them, it was the song, I suppose, in some ways, that changed my life. So, where's my bag? So, the last records that I bought are all by Cat Power. Her music, again, is just comforting. It's on one level like an album like What Would the Community Think? Is so sad and so tragic and so bare bones. But that's not representative of all of her music, and she crosses so many spectrums. You have an album like The Greatest, which is such... it's a very sad record, but it's such an emotional, powerful record. And it's got something that I can stick up on my wall, which is always important to me. The other two I got You Are Free, which again, similar to The Greatest, but I guess more tragic. And that's it. That is the vinyl update, and this video was probably far too rambly and far too long, and I apologise to anybody who had to sit through it. But I hope you liked it. Until next time, I hope you stay well, have an amazing couple of weeks, and I will speak to you very soon. Ta-ra.